Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. I am your host, Ed Dentzel. Today I got like 3 or 4 stories just out of going to get blood taken this morning. That's just weird how that happens. Not all political stories, but just weird how that happens. And it's just a very short drive. It's not even a 10-minute drive to the LabCorp office where I have to go. I get my blood taken every 6 months. However, I will admit over the last couple years, it's been more like every 9 months, something like that. But because I have genetically high cholesterol and I take the generic equivalent of Lipitor, whatever that long avravastatin, however you say that word, and I'm only taking like 5 milligrams like every other day or every third day. So it's not a horrible case, but being that I was diagnosed with high cholesterol at 36 years old, which is 10 years ago almost now, it does mean something. It's a big deal, and there are some heart issues that run in my biological family. So I try to keep up on it, and that's why I know so much about health insurance, because I pay for my own, and I can tell you how much the costs have gone up in the last few years because of Obamacare. But just going over there in the back, you'll not believe what I saw. I saw a guy on a motorcycle, not like a Harley, but one of those cruiser-type motorcycles with the windshield and the bags, the hard bags on each side of the rear wheel, fairly luxurious motorcycle. And he was riding with a decently large dog in his lap. In fact, if you go to my Facebook page, I mention it every show, I actually caught a video of it while he was parked in front of me at a red light for about like a 3-second video. And there the dog is, and it's not a small dog. This is probably a 30-pound dog. I'm going to say maybe even a little more than that. It looked like a basset hound or something like that. You know, the big floppy ears, long floppy ears. And he's just cruising down the highway. I was behind him, going 40, 45 miles an hour, headed out to the beach. That dog's ears just flapping in the wind, and this guy's driving his motorcycle with a dog on it. I've seen a lot in my life. Never seen something like that. And it's one more of the reasons that I may be a conservative, but when the issue is motorcycles on the road, I see more motorcycle people taking more chances, breaking the law, than any driver that I've seen. It's not even close. So I saw that. It's kind of funny, but it's kind of serious. What if he wrecks? The dog's not asking for that. At least in your car, and you have your dog running around the back seat, you get into a wreck. The odds of it surviving are pretty good. You just lay that motorcycle down and a car pulls out in front of you, the dog is dead. It's a little disgusting. It's a little disgusting. But I filmed it. I got it on film. Just haven't seen something like before. How that goes through some person's mind is beyond me. That person cannot say I care so much about my dog. Cannot make that argument. But also, and this gets into the political side of it, while I was at the LabCorp office, this technician, this is the second time I've had her. It's like 2 times in a row. She's from Venezuela. I couldn't tell you her name. I'm sure it was on her lab coat or whatever. I don't remember. But she's from Venezuela. She speaks perfectly fine English, but has an accent. And she had told me the first time I was there she was from Venezuela. So when I showed up there this morning, I said, "Hey, I remember you." And she didn't quite remember me because, of course, she has so many patients. But I said, "You're from Venezuela?" She goes, yeah. So I sat down, and she goes, "Just horrible what's going on in Venezuela. And we know about that Maduro guy and the shortages and nothing on the shelves and just running a country that could otherwise be pretty rich, right into the ground. That's what's been going on in Venezuela for a long time now, even before this guy, Hugo Chavez, was made that happen as well. But this Maduro guy, it seems like he's even worse. And she doesn't know what I do. Never talk about my profession with her, that I do this show, my politics, nothing. Didn't come up the first time, didn't come up today. And she starts going on and on. She tells me how it costs $300 to send medicine from the United States to Venezuela because there's no medicine in the country. The average person cannot get any medicine there. You get sick in that country, you just got to live with it or you die. And she just out of the blue asked me who I'm going to be voting for in the presidential election. And I said, frankly, I'm probably not going to vote for anybody for president. None of the, and I just, once again, kept it real simple. Did not lean one way or the other. I just said, none of the choices really get me excited at all. I just kept it nice and simple. Didn't want to go all right-winger on her. And she replies to me, yes, all of them remind me of Maduro in Venezuela. All of them. That's what she said. She went on to explain, Hillary, Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, the people who are left, they all remind me of the dictator in Venezuela. That's what she said. She still has her mother who lives there, and she still has a sister who live in Venezuela. So she knows what's going on there, and I don't know how long it's been since she lived there. She might have told me that the first time I was there. I don't remember. But she has a good job here in the United States in the medical field, doing that work. Probably gets paid decent. I'm very happy for her. Couldn't be doing that in Venezuela. But here's what you learn about people who used to live or have family that still live under communist regimes. When they go to another country, they know problems, they know bad leaders when they see it. They know it. That's why Cubans, even though we kind of throw them in with Latinos and Mexicans and everybody else, they're just a little bit different than the rest of those people who come from Central America or the Caribbean. It's funny how that works. Likewise, why you look at people who come to the United States who are from Eastern Europe, Czech Republic, Romania, Bulgaria, they come to the United States, they know dictators when they see it, especially if they're older and lived behind the Iron Curtain for just even 10 or 15 years back in the 70s into the 80s. They know it when they see it. They know con men and strong men or strong women when they see it. That we don't take their words and their experience a little bit more seriously is a flaw on our part. It's one of the reasons that it seems that those countries seem to be better allies with the United States than the traditional allies of Germany and France and the rest of them, Italy. It's also why those countries so badly wanted to get into NATO. They have much tougher illegal immigration policies than the rest of Europe because they know problems, because they've experienced those problems. They've lived with those issues. They've lived under situations where you can't find bread and you can't get clean water. They know communism. They know socialism. They know what big government is. And we don't take their word enough. So that was fascinating to me. Did not egg this woman on at all. I just kind of nodded. And I just kept it nice and milquetoast. Just nice, lukewarm response. Ah, okay. Even though I'm thinking inside, I could have probably talked to this woman for a long time about her country. Just don't want to get into that. Just voluntarily, as if she knew I do this show. And I'm sure she does not. In fact, when she looked at my paperwork, she couldn't even pronounce my last name. That's how I even know more so that she knows nothing about this show that I do. So there was that also happened while I went to while I was out today. And there's a couple other stories. Maybe I'll save them for another time because I want to get into the show and what is going on nationally and internationally. I guess I have to give my opinion regarding this gorilla issue, don't I? At the Cincinnati Zoo, kid sneaks into the cage or the habitat, I guess that's what they call it. The habitat, and that big silverback gorilla's there, that just huge animal. And I don't talk too much about the media in this country. I do not yell at them and criticize them as much as other conservatives for various reasons that I don't want to get into here. But this is one of those cases where the coverage of this story has definitely pushed public sentiment in a particular direction. What you may not know, why is my voice going suddenly raspy? All right, let's try that again. What you may not know about this situation that happened with this kid, if you watch most of the videos that are out there, they're only a couple minutes long, and they don't show entirely what happened. They just show when the gorilla was treating the boy nice. They don't show, because if you don't know, the entire episode took like 11 minutes, not 2 minutes. You have to look kind of hard for an extended video and the entire episode. You watch the video and you think it's 2 minutes. Well, it went on for 11 minutes. And during those 11 minutes, the gorilla, although it was sometimes nice to the little kid, at other times it was dragging that kid around by his leg, treating this little kid, this little boy, as a toy, not as a living thing. And that's why the gorilla needed to be shot. I know it. Don't get me wrong. I know it sucks. Who knows what that mother was doing, what she was doing, not keeping an eye on her son. Who knows what the zoo was thinking, that's how a little kid could get inside the habitat in the first place. How could the little kid think it was a good idea in the first place? Maybe I just can't put myself in the mind of a little kid like that. Probably doesn't understand. He just sees some animal and he probably thinks it's just a big dog. You don't know. I mean, there's a lot of blame to go around. And unfortunately, it was the gorilla that had to pay the price for all of these human mistakes. And I understand that. And that sucks. However, on the other hand, I don't know what else the zoo was supposed to really do. For those people who are out there and saying, well, the gorilla was treating this kid like it was protecting this child. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. You're being manipulated by a media that wants to portray humans as bad people, and animals never make any mistakes. And that all animals are to be loved. And they are. But you also have to understand the nature of these animals. And the nature of these animals is not peace. It is war. Most animals in the world live in a very violent state of nature. They don't have governments. They don't have agreements. They don't have treaties. Nothing. They don't have the ability to do that. So their first instinct when invaded upon something new is to either be very scared and run the other way or to attack. This gorilla did not run away from that little kid. It went over to him, and that should tell you something. That should tell you something. I know that generally gorillas are not hunters like we typically think of a lion or a tiger or a bear or something like that. But they're very strong. They're very fast. And I think also what happens in this case is because gorillas kind of look like humans, and if you're going to believe evolutionary science that we evolved from gorillas, if you want to believe that, we see the eyes, they're in the same place as our eyes. We see the head that looks like ours, and the nose that kind of looks like ours, and the mouth, and the arms and the legs. And we start thinking, well, it's just like the gorillas are really just really, really, really stupid humans. And it's more than that. These are wild animals. You never know what they're going to do. If you don't believe me, just get on YouTube and start doing searches for wild animals with humans. That wild animals that were being treated like pets. And then you'll see all the attacks that go on out there. You don't know what's in these animals' heads. And as has been stated a couple different places where I was reading about this story, what would have happened if the mother went in there? If she could even get in there to kind of sacrifice herself for a child, both of them would have been dead. Now, maybe that's what she should have done. Maybe that's your responsibility of a parent, but it wouldn't have changed anything. Death would have happened. I also know, had the zoo kind of taken a hands-off policy regarding all of this and kind of just let things play out maybe, that all it would take would be a split second of that gorilla in all its strength. Remember, a gorilla has more strength than any human being. They may be dumb, but they are not weak. All it would take, one hand grabbing that kid, throwing him, hitting his head against the side of the habitat or whatever, he'd be dead. In a split second before anybody could do anything. And as I told you, the gorilla had already shown tendencies that was looking at this child as more of a plaything, and who knows how a gorilla is going to treat a plaything. It also is interesting to me that the zoo had a gun that could kill the gorilla on the premises. It took 11 minutes from this kid getting in there to the gorilla was dead. And in those 11 minutes, the zoo managed to find a gun to kill. I don't think the police got there that fast. Once the police get called and show up, and decision is going to be made, and I don't know if they're going to allow a policeman to shoot this gorilla. I'm sure the zoo is going to take it into their own hands, and I don't see a cop giving up his gun to do something like this. So I'm sure that gun that was used on that gorilla was the zoo's gun. Well, why does it have a gun that can actually kill animals? For instances like this. You know why? Because wild animals are unpredictable. That's why. If it was a zoo full of cats and dogs and horses and hamsters, then they wouldn't need a gun. Maybe for the dogs if one got rabid, but that's about it. But because they have a zoo full of animals that are wild, that aren't used to being around humans, you need weapons around. That's just the way it is. For a specific circumstance such as this. Once again, I know it sucks for the gorilla. And if there's a gorilla heaven, I'm sure that gorilla is going to be treated really, really well because he had to die for no fault of his own. But that was what needed to be done. Or, I think I read somewhere, well, he should have shot him with a tranquilizer gun. Do you know how long those tranquilizers take to work? Have you ever watched anything like that? Couple minutes. And in the meantime, that gorilla is going to be in pain. It's not like it's not like the movies where a human gets shot with a tranquilizer gun in 2 seconds, they're asleep. That's not how it works. Not even in real life. Not even with humans. The gorilla would get hit, it would be scared, it'd feel the pain, it'd start running around, and who knows what it would do to that child then. Maybe try to lure it with some food, with some bananas, or I don't know what they feed this gorilla. Maybe lure it with something like that. Once again, if it doesn't work, the zoo, if that gorilla would have killed that child, it would be the zoo that was on the hook, and that mother would have been suing. She'd be an instant millionaire because of it. These are all reasons that the gorilla needed to die, even though I know that the gorilla is the innocent party. It's not like the gorilla broke out of the cage. And I love animals as much as the next person, even though I don't want to take care of them. But, as you know, if you've been listening to the show a few weeks ago, I was watching my brother and his wife's dog. His name's Kobe. He's 10, almost 11 years old, big 90-some pound mixture of different golden retriever, not golden retriever, Labrador retriever, and Rottweiler, but just the most peaceful dog you ever want to see. To the point of the dog's just antisocial, just wants to be on itself, just lying around. Wants to go outside, wants to come inside. Wants to lie out in the sun, wants to come back inside. Wants to sniff around. But you still don't know what's going on in that dog's head. You have no idea. It could be sitting there looking at me thinking, I think I want to kill that human. You just don't know. And we all know the stories of even pet dogs that somehow just kind of go off the deep end sometimes and end up attacking a baby or a little kid. So even what we call tame animals, animals that are used to being around humans, can do that at times. And once again, I know that this is just terrible. I know that the people that had to see that, and it couldn't have been a tough decision for the zoo people because they'd raised this gorilla since it was little, and they named it. But I don't think we're having this conversation if it's a lion or a tiger, something like that, an animal like that, an elephant, because those animals don't look like us. It also shows me how many people have come out of the woodwork to attack what the Cincinnati Zoo did. It also shows me that I've talked about this before, and this maybe seems like a strange context to bring it up, but do we really know evil when we see it? I'm not saying necessarily that the gorilla was quote-unquote evil. I don't know what its nature is. It's just a gorilla. I'm not sure it knows the difference between right and wrong, good and bad, anything else. And that's what makes it so dangerous. But that so many people, millions of people, cannot see that situation and know that the gorilla needed to be shot just shows you where our culture has gone. That they'd rather take the chance of the kid being killed than killing the gorilla, as if it's the kid's fault. Now, is it the kid's fault that he's in there? Yeah, I guess. But I don't know how you say the kid had intent to go in there. It's just a little kid doesn't realize he's not supposed to be in there. But I guess there's many people who would rather see the kid pay than the gorilla pay. And in fact, you can see the comments out there that people would like to see the mother pay for not keeping track of her son and allow him to get into this situation. As far as zoos and whether we should have them, it's going to once again generate the debate. I just saw within the last couple months, that the Barnum and Bailey, the circus, they're getting rid of their elephants. Not going to have them anymore because of animal rights activists. And I'm sure the Cincinnati Zoo episode will bring those people out. that we shouldn't have zoos, that animals deserve to be in the wild. And I have no position on that. Should we have zoos? Should they be in captivity? I don't know. I can live with that as long as all those people can then live with, you know what, humans will never be around those animals. We'll never get to see those animals up close unless they go to the jungles of South America or go on an African safari, most of which even Americans cannot afford to do. If those people can live with that we can't study these animals up close and your average person get to see them and admire their beauty even though they're dangerous, then I can live with that too. I'm not going to stand here and defend the zoo system of the United States or of the world. But there are pluses and minuses. If these people who are animal rights people want humans to have more respect for animals, then I think more humans need to be in contact with those animals, and instead of just watching them on YouTube or on National Geographic. That's what I think. To me, it's not important to me whether humans have that kind of interaction with animals or not. I think that all living things are to be respected. But I also understand that if you are a Christian, you understand that all of these animals were put here for our use. But you can respect them at the same time and not torture them, things like that. And that stuff is wrong. But I think the people who've come out in the woodwork regarding all of this are just people who see animals being the same as humans. In fact, they see animals as being better than humans. And really, they're not. We think humans are sneaky. How about animals? We think humans are violent. The most violent place on earth is not in human society. It is in animal society. We just don't see it. We just happen to catch it once in a while when we get documentaries on what goes on in the jungle or in Africa or other places on the earth with lions attacking wildebeest and things like that. That is nature. There are no laws. So don't try to tell me that animals are better than we are. They're not. They're not. How else do I know? You can get a bunch of nice dogs, tame dogs that live in their own individual houses, never poop inside, love their masters, like to lay around and snuggle. You get those same dogs together in a dog park, and guaranteed there's going to be at least 3 or 4 or 5 fights. Whereas you can get the owners of those dogs together, and all the humans get along just fine. That's how I know humans are better than animals. This is, I think, once again, though, this is a degradation of our culture and how we view ourselves and what we're doing here. That's also why I've tried to tell you we are not animals. We are animals in a biological sense, but not in a moral sense, not in a spiritual sense. Our minds make us different. And our minds make us superior. I know we are capable of a lot of bad things as humans, but generally we get along better than animals do. It's not looking over your shoulder both ways every day that you go out as a human. It's not. But for animals, it is. We've gone too crazy with this stuff to the point where a bunch of people can really think that a gorilla shouldn't be shot because these people have convinced themselves that this gorilla was going to take care of this little kid, where there was a ton of information, a bunch of people, eyewitnesses saying, no, it wasn't. You've only seen a small bit of the story. To use a horrible cliche, the gorilla was treating that little kid like a rag doll. And we're just lucky in those few minutes that the gorilla didn't do something, dragging that kid around that hit his head or something like that where the kid would have died. Very fortunate, and that's what we should really be thinking about. We should really be fortunate that this kid didn't die and they didn't go back into his mother's arms. I know it sucks for the gorilla, but that's the way it goes. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio.
The voice of American conservatism. WRS Digital, Red State Talk Radio.
And we're back at the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio. Let's get away from the gorilla story and move on to something else. Did you see this video? This is the third story that I got from going to have blood taken this morning. As I was sitting there in the lobby waiting, and they took me in very fast. I can tell you, I've been going to this LabCorp place for a few years now, maybe 3 years. They do their work very fast, and I really enjoy that. I hate getting blood giving, having to do this blood, the needle going in, the blood, I can't look at any of it. If I looked in it, I'm sure that I would faint. I'm sure I would. That's why I could have never been a doctor. Don't like needles, don't like blood. Forget it. Just forget it. But as I was sitting there watching, the TV was on local Tampa news. Some sort of morning show, local Tampa morning show news. And they played this video that I guess, and I've watched the video since then, just caught a clip of it while I was watching. This kid who is sitting, this little kid, I'm going to say I'm terrible with kids' ages. Terrible. Is he 8? Is he 9 years old? I'm not sure. But he's sitting in some sort of seat, so he must not big enough to be just sitting in the regular back seat with a regular seatbelt. But his mother's filming him, and this kid is having a total tantrum, total crying, his eyes out, his face is red. The kid's heart must have been beating 150 beats per minute. And what was it about? It was about people trashing the environment and trashing the earth. And it went on for a long time. Like I said, I came home and watched the video, and it goes on for at least a couple minutes. And thankfully, because the kid's mumbling, they had like closed captioning below, so you knew exactly what he was saying. Talk about people throwing trash out and how he hates these people who are destroying the earth, and the world's gonna, using my words, blow up. But this kid, he was full of fear. And even the worst thing about it, the worser thing about it, he wasn't alone in the back seat. You could hear in the next seat to him was like a younger brother or sister sitting in another car seat. And this kid must have been 3 or 4 years old, and that kid was crying. The older kid had gotten to the point where he was upsetting the younger kid. And here the mother is filming the whole thing, not trying to calm her son down, but no, she's feeding into it. Telling, well, maybe you can make posters, as if this kid is some 19-year-old Greenpeace activist. Like the kid actually understands what he's saying. The mother felt it was fine that this kid continued to ramble on and give himself a panic attack. I'm going to say this again. I've said it. I know I don't have any children. Maybe never will. And in fact, one of those alt-right people wrote me this weekend in response to my YouTube video about them, saying, well, being that I'm in my 40s and I don't have any kids, I must be gay. Okay. Any case, I know I don't have any kids. Maybe I will one of these days. Who knows? Still holding on. I still look fantastic. I don't like kids being involved in politics. And that's both on the right and on the left. Bringing kids into adult situations is wrong, and politics is an adult situation. You know why? Because life is an X-rated dark comedy, a thing that you would never take your kids to see. It has violence, it has sex, it has people cheating on each other, it has power struggles, it has dictators. There's even some humor mixed in. If Hollywood wanted to make a true representation of life, it would be an X-rated dark comedy. With all sorts of irony and coincidences and people sleeping with each other's wives. That's how life would be. That's the way I see life. Just the way we are as humans. Just the way we are. So to bring kids into that at 4 or 5 years old, 8 years old, I see these people bringing their kids to anti-GMO rallies, scaring the bejesus out of them, bringing them to environmentalist rallies like this kid's been obviously totally brainwashed. It's no wonder then that we have so many kids that are on more and more medication, scaring them with adult situations. Situations that we as adults should be talking about. Likewise, even on the right, taking kids to Tea Party events, I know you couldn't get a sitter. I get it. But these kids, they understand the English language, but they don't understand how the world works. So when you start talking about big government and how it's coming for your guns and these things, kids take that. I mean, yes, could it happen? Sure. But kids, from what I say, take this stuff a little too seriously. We should take it seriously, but kids don't understand everything that's going on. Maybe they do, maybe they will when they're 15, 16, 17 years old. Hopefully they will. Hopefully they will take the world seriously. But hopefully it's because they've generated ideas on their own, not because they've been brainwashed and indoctrinated. So one of the reasons I tell you conservatives, get your kids out of those schools. But we have these kids who aren't even 10 years old yet getting involved in world issues, politics, that they have no hope of understanding. Why? But why are they scared? Because there are certain people that want these kids to be scared. And that's the whole perverted thing behind it. I know we on the right, we want our kids to come to this. We don't want them to grow up to be liberals. Very, very admirable of you. But a lot of the talk that goes on at these political rallies, although it is good for humans, it is not good for kids. And in fact, it could maybe even make them go the opposite direction. It really could. By forcing this stuff down their throats. Keep the kids out of it. But here's the other part of this. Here's this mother of this child. I'm going to guess that she's the mother of both of those children in there. Kid's going on and on, obviously just upsetting himself over and over and over. She would rather have that kid have a panic attack and bawl his eyes out. And I had some quotes from this. Now you tell me if this isn't lefty thinking. When you hear a child using the word, I hate them, he wants to stop people. Where do you think he gets that language from? That's not language that he's created on his own. This is language that comes from adults. The word hate is an adult word. And when you start hating people you can't even put your finger on, that's an adult action, not a kid action. Kids don't even realize that there are even probably any people outside of their house. All they know is what they see on TV and where their parents take them. They don't understand that there's like 7 billion people on this world. But when you hear a kid say, I hate them, somebody has taught him that. When he says he wants to stop people, somebody has put that in his head. But even given all that mother filming all of it, she would rather have that kid say all of those things and talk to him about posters than what? Than ever say, you know what, son, you know there is a different line of thinking out there. There are a considerable amount of people in the world who don't believe that the earth is going anywhere, that the humans are not going to destroy it, that the environment isn't as bad as some people think. Now that's all factual. Now she may not believe it. I can't make somebody believe something. But she would rather have that kid bawl and yell and hate them and everything than try to give another side of the story just to get him calmed down. That's weird. That's perverted. And it's absolutely the worst thing you can do in parenting. Like I said, woman doesn't have to believe it. I'm not going to ask her to. I wish she did, probably doesn't. But no, she just turns right into the curve. Turns right into the slide. We're going to go right along with this. We're going to get posters, and I'm going to get this kid, as if the kid realizes anything of what's really going on. When all she had to do was say, you know what, son, I know you're upset about this, but I want you to know that not everybody thinks that way, that there is hope for the earth. There are many scientists who don't believe that they're in global warming, that it's that the earth isn't going anywhere, son. Please believe me on that. Wouldn't say it. It's all so ugly, and it's once again why I say you got to keep your kids out of this stuff. They're just that mother would rather have that kid have a panic attack than give him another side of the story. She'd rather take him for counseling than say that there's another side of the story. And this is what liberalism is. They're willing to make anybody worried. They're willing to give anybody a panic attack, anything to make their agenda happen. I watched that video and I feel so bad for that kid for so many different reasons, not just because he's upset. I feel bad because he obviously has a mother that's wrong, that doesn't want to tell him the truth. Once again, she doesn't have to believe it, but it's not worth it. Yelling and screaming and hating and crying and everything is not worth it. She's not willing to say that. You know, she was treating him as if he just lost his favorite toy at the beach or something. So, just so wrong. It was just so wrong. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for the mother. I feel bad for our culture. Was this going on in the 1950s? Were there kids in the back seats of cars, 8-year-olds, crying about the possibility of mutually assured destruction between the Soviet Union and the United States? I just want to know. I know that kids knew about it. But there was anything like this going on? The only reason kids knew about it is because they had to be prepared in case there was a nuclear explosion. As if jumping under their desks was actually going to help. Duck and cover. Yeah, that's really going to help if a nuclear bomb goes off. So they had to know about it for that reason. But outside of that, could any of those 8-year-olds, 9-year-olds in the 1950s really appreciate world destruction through nuclear weapons? No. And I'm not so sure how many even knew about that or were concerned about that. But to tell you the truth, that was huge. That was much more likely at that time than humans destroying the earth in the next 1,000 years. But some reason, those kids back then weren't crying about that. But then we have kids today that are totally brainwashed on something that probably isn't even true. At least nuclear war was true. And it could easily have happened. Now, once again, no wonder we have so many kids on Ritalin and taking kids to psychiatrists. No wonder. You can try to find that video. I'll try to link to it through my Twitter account. Let's move on to something else. I was reading this article. This has to do with Hillary Clinton. You notice I've gone so far into the show and I've only mentioned Donald Trump a couple times in passing regarding that is Venezuela blood technician. But don't think I'll be mentioning him the rest of the show, which is nice. Hillary Clinton. There's an article in the USA Today. I found this at usatoday.com. Didn't write down who wrote the article. But to read it, or to see how it's been typified, I think I found the article through the newamericana.com, which is a news site I go to. It's the replacement for the Drudge Report in my daily processing of news now. I haven't been to the Drudge Report or Breitbart.com in months. I want nothing to do with either of them. But this isn't as hard a hitting piece on Hillary Clinton as it appears. I bring this up because I think I told you yesterday about my friend that I talk a lot of politics with. He asked me, is there a possibility, could there really be a possibility that Hillary gets kicked out and they replace her with Bernie Sanders? And I just told him, that's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. No matter how much outrage there seems to be, or so much fear there is on the left regarding her presidential aspirations. This kind of article is the reason that I'm pretty sure they're not going to replace her, even though they're fearful of it, allegedly. I just take a look at the title of the article. I don't even have to read the article to know how they are getting it wrong and how they're going to try to portray what Hillary Clinton did regarding these emails. You know what the headline is? Hillary broke the rules. Now you may say, well, hey, they're admitting that she broke the rules. Wouldn't a more accurate representation of what she did was break the law? See, when I hear break the rules, being that this is starting summer here, we had, it's interesting down here in Madeira Beach. It's so quiet and everything, but those tourist seasons, Memorial Day, July 4th, Labor Day, ambulance just flying up and down, cops flying all over the place, sirens, lights flashing. You know when the tourists are in town. I got to tell you that. But being this is tourist season, everybody's going to be going to the pool. When I hear about breaking the rules, I think about like a community pool and it says don't run around the deck of the pool. That's like a rule. That's not illegal. That's just a recommendation because you might slip, you might fall, you might crack your head, you might fall in the water, you might drown. But it's not illegal. And you may get in trouble for doing that, but you're not going to be thrown in jail. That's what I think of when I think of breaking the rules. Well, Hillary did a little bit more than that. She actually broke the law. And that the USA Today can't put that in the headline for this article should tell you something. Should tell you something. And then getting into the article itself, if you really want to do that, it certainly goes to great lengths. Now, eventually gets around to Hillary herself. But it certainly does go to great lengths to talk about her assistants and what these other people were doing and how all these other people had fears about all of this. And they continued to use this email. And it's not until long down, I think they bullet point like 4 different issues regarding Hillary and this email and whether it got hacked and all that. It waits till about number 3 or number 4 before they start going in at Hillary herself. And even then, what they say is, well, she needs to come on and explain why she used her email this way. And this is what I was trying to explain to this friend of mine, that they're going to ride it out with her. The problem is not that they think she broke the law or not. They just want her to come up with a better explanation of why she did it. They don't want her to pay for it. They just wanted her to come up with a really, really good explanation that everybody will buy so she can continue to be the nominee. That's different than them saying she broke the law and actually in the back of their minds thinking, we need to get rid of this woman. All their actions and words say the opposite. And I'll remind you that the Democrats still have a nomination process going on, and Hillary still continues to get tons and tons and tons of votes despite all of these problems. Yeah, I know, Bernie's giving her a good run, but that she can even be competitive with all of this information out there shows you the Democrats, for the most part, don't take this stuff this seriously. They just want her to come up with an explanation. Whereas if the USA Today was being truthful, it would just come out and say there is no explanation. They wouldn't be looking for an explanation from her. They'd just say, we realize there's no explanation for why Hillary did this, except to say that she just doesn't give a dang. If the USA Today article was being truthful, that would be the case. That would be as close to an explanation as you're going to get. She just didn't give a dang. She was taking shortcuts because it just wasn't convenient for her. Do I think that she wanted her email account hacked? No. I've told you the reason I think that she had it set up this way. She had it set up this way because Barack Obama didn't want her to have anything to do with Sidney Blumenthal. But she did want to have something to do with Sidney Blumenthal. But she knew if she used the State Department's system, that somebody outside of the State Department would find out then that she was dealing with Sidney Blumenthal. So she decided to have a private server instead. On top of that, she got that private server so she could do private business for the Clinton Foundation and intertwine that with her job at the State Department, what she was doing as Secretary of State. That's why she had, but she can't say that. Now, I'm going to ask the USA Today, if they're listening, you want an explanation, how would that explanation fly with you? Because that's the truth. How would that fly with you? Oh, it wouldn't fly with you. Oh, I see. Because that would be the average Democrat's response. Oh, she would never do that. So they really don't want an explanation, a truthful one. They just want one to make this all go away. They're perfectly willing, trust me. They are perfectly fine with what she did. They just want her to come up with an explanation that everybody buys for political reasons. Like I said, they just think she broke the rules, not the law. But I got to go. EdwardDentzel.com is where you can find all of my old Red State Talk radio shows. You can also find them at Podomatic, Podbean, SoundCloud, and YouTube. You can email me, EdwardDentzel@Reagan.com. Twitter, Dentzel Domain, all one word, no space in between. Facebook, LinkedIn. EdwardDentzel.com/book is where you can download for free the next chapter or the first chapter of my next novel called The Comebacks. You can also check out my other show called America's Missing Podcast, a non-political show that I do with my co-host Melissa Bridges. It's been a pleasure talking to you tonight. You've been listening to the Dentzel Domain on Red State Talk Radio.